Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, while it is usually quite necessary, it's a job that just ends up being the absolute worst. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do. You can subscribe to the podcast. We are available basically wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that subscribe button. Give us the old like, the 5-star rating. On all major platforms. We're at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google. It's all pretty much good. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to follow us on social media. We're on, as the kids call it, we're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, and we're on the Instagram at, where else would we be? We're at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because if we love to write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a good one. We are talking about The Middleman, which is in theaters now from our friends at Level Film. And it is the story of one Frank Farrelli, who takes the job of middleman in the town of Karmack, USA, which is, well, let's just say it. It is a godforsaken town in the middle of a depression so deep that they actually need a middleman to professionally communicate more of the bad news that's coming their way. It's a bit of a dry, like wry, kind of deadpan comedy with some dramatic elements to it as well. But it's from writer-director Bent Hammer, who's done a lot of fantastic stuff over the years. The one you might know him for the most is O'Horton back in 2007. But we had the distinct pleasure of sitting down and talking with him and the star of the film, Mr. Pal Sverre Hagen, back at TIFF when it was playing during the festival, just about the origins of the story and working together and so very much more. But like I said, go check out The Middleman, which is in theaters now all across our great country and is rolling out even more screens, I do believe. It was shot in Canada too, by the way. So if you need another reason to go support a film like this, it's homegrown and made. But like I said, go check out The Middleman in theaters now. But enjoy our talk with these two fine gentlemen, Pal and Bent, because between you and me, it's a good one. All right, well, gentlemen, obviously, first off, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. Now, I guess my first question is for you, Sir Bent. I love the film. Like, I got an absolute kick out of it, but I mean, it felt very honest and very human at the same time. I mean, can you walk me through, I guess, sort of the initial inspiration for the story?
Yeah, what is the inspiration? I read the book. Of course, that was the first inspiration. And my wife read it and said, you should really read this one. But when I get this opportunity and this kind of recommendation, I'm always quite suspicious. I usually just concentrate on one film, so I have to really to be how sure it's possible to be, at least, before I choose to go for a project. So what was it? It's it's always hard to say if it's something special, but I think it was the whole thing. It was, at least, it has nothing to do that I wanted to do another project in English or do it in the US or whatever. It's the story itself. I mean, people struggling. It's a lot of dark humor into it. And I think it's quite, even if it's this small town in the Midwest or wherever it is in North America, where people are struggling, I think it also represents a lot of other people's lives. So, but it's maybe it always have to be a kind of human aspect that I that I like in it, and maybe also some kind of room for humor,
For sure.
I believe. But so specifically why it's, I don't think I can answer that with any of my films in a way. It's
Now,
the
Paul,
whole.
for you, how about you? What was it about the material that you really liked?
No, the script when I first, I don't think I've admitted to Bent that if you know, I would have said yes, no matter what kind of script he sent me. But that's another story. But the script was very good, and it had a very clear feeling of something. And it's, you know, the film, I think also when you see it, it's like it's quite open, you know, as to what am I really watching, and what is this story really? And I think that was there in the script as well. And I think that whole feeling of exploring something, exploring these characters, exploring this universe, this world that Bent creates, was just it's a challenge, but it's what else can we do? But you know, it's what we want to do when we work in this profession here.
Now, I mean, it's funny because, I mean, I loved your character so much. I mean, he quite literally is the middleman. And I mean, he is this guy who is so betwixt and between, but still having sort of enthusiasm doing this job that, you know, really nobody would want. And I mean, how do you sort of get yourself into sort of that because it's almost like a neutral headspace you sort of have to be in to sort of embody the character? Like, how did you manage to find him?
You know, I thought it was fun, you know, him trying to figure out how to bring this bad news to people. And I think it's quite fun if you start from scratch and you try to sort of crack that, you know, how do you do that? And you know, I think that what's interesting about Frank is that he has so many faces in a way, and trying to explore as many of them as we could was very, very interesting. And I think that if we did it right, you will keep sort of guessing who is this guy really. And even though it's subtle, I hope that we can show different sides of him in a way that makes it interesting.
Well, I think that's the magic of it, because I mean, it really is this town that is sort of, like I said before, betwixt and between. It's in this really weird place, and I mean, it almost feels like dystopian meets Dust Bowl kind of thing. And I'm kind of curious, Bent, when you were sort of designing the visual look of the film, like, is that the kind of thing you were going for? Because it really has this sort of it really does. It's this unique universe that you've created.
Yeah, of course. Talk a lot about it with my DOP, John Christian Rosenlund, and with the production designer. And I mean, when you deal with these down and out environments, it's always a lot of, mess. So it's one of the challenges is to catch it, and capture it, but at the same time try to make it in a sort of order, try to to clean it up in a way,
right?
Which also you can do with how you light it, one side lighting and all that. It's so we talk a lot about it, and colors, of course, and also to be a little bit technical, but we knew we had to shoot 1/3 of the film in Germany, so we also have to think about how to fit it into a whole piece. I mean, like a seamless piece, even if the locations in Germany was more or less interiors, but also exteriors. So we talk a lot about it in many ways. This is more maybe technical, but you can go into the moods and the colors and all that also, of course. And it leads us into the costumes, and I mean, I can talk for a long time about that, but and we operate with mood boards, which my DOP is very good to find kind of mood boards where we all try to be a part of and put in our piece. I mean, to make a film is really a work of many people's efforts and skills, talent.
For sure, no, unquestionably. And I mean, in watching the film, I mean, I think the thing that at least I appreciated the most was, as much as there are elements of seriousness and everyone's playing it off like as emotion, like the correct proper way, within the snap of a fingers, somebody could say something and I'd be on the floor laughing. And I mean, could you talk to me a little bit just about casting and I mean, particularly the, I guess maybe the Canadian like actors that you had in the film, because there are so many people in this film who can do serious, but then within, like I said, within a split second, have you absolutely cracked up and on the floor.
Yeah, for me, it has always been the key to humor. Never made a comedy, and sometimes people are selling my films as comedies, at least the dark comedies. But the key for me is always to do it, yeah, kind of deadpan and not laughing at all. And I remember that was Paul Gross' first question. He had laughed when he read the script and he saw all the humor and he watched my former films. But the only question was if we should try to be funny in a way. And I said, of course not. And he said, yeah, that was what I hoped you would say. That was my only question. So, I mean, it's more this kind of, as I like to call it, without hoping that I'm not being too pretentious, but poetic humor is a kind of bigger humor, the human being in this, what are we struggling with, all of us? And it's not only the people we are seeing on the screen, but it absolutely concerns ourselves also.
Now, pal, I've got to imagine that there were days where you were having a hard time keeping a straight face during some of these scenes. I'm kind of curious, how did Bent sort of rein everybody in?
No, you're absolutely right. We had a lot. Yes, there are a few scenes that we still can't watch without being brought back to the absurdity of it. And like you say, some of my Canadian colleagues have this very, very deeply like humor in their fabric as actors and performers. So it's always on the edge with them, always, which is lovely, because when you laugh easily together, it's that sort of energy can be molded into anything, and it's just a very, very good way to connect as actors.
I don't know if
you'll go ahead.
Excuse me. Okay, I was just thinking about now. I forgot it before, but the scene when Paul is called in to the sheriff and asked if he want to continue the job, and Don is sitting behind the sheriff binding a fly. I don't know if you got that. Did you discover it? I mean, I didn't point it. It could be more. I don't know that we could. I don't know. Was it too? That it was too. What to say?
Too subtle, you mean?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure, but I liked it that way. But I remember we laughed a lot. Him sitting as good as to bind the
No, it was absolutely impossible, because I was sitting there facing Paul Gross as the sheriff, and behind him was Don McKellar as the doctor, and I wouldn't see him except for when he sort of leaned out and just gave me a look. No, it was impossible. Don is very dangerous on set. It's very, very difficult.
Very, very funny.
Now, I mean, just to put a bow on this, I mean, the beautiful thing about this film is that, I mean, it's very much a Scandinavian Canadian film. And I mean, it feels very universal and very sort of international across so many levels. And I'm kind of curious from both of you who have and don't necessarily work inside the North American, have worked inside the North American system, but don't necessarily do all the time. How do you think we bridge those gaps? Is it just to make more movies like this that have sort of those multiple sensibilities that are kind of colliding with one another?
What do you say, Bent? I mean, you know more about the production side of it and getting it all together.
I don't know. I in a way, I think when it's hard to define and categorize, but art house films are all over the world, has its own flavor, I would say. So then we are more into the bigger productions, and if they will always follow the more or less the follow the stream, the mainstream. But I mean, Canadians, you have also, I mean, yeah, directors who are making their own stuff, which we can feel really connected to. And I got a question about like the Coen brothers. It's very easy. I won't compare to them, but I mean, they also are a little bit in this same kind of Nordic. Nordic noir, at least they are. I don't know.
Yeah.
We are doing that, but to say what did one of these journalists say, the films from above the melancholy vodka belt, which is up north.
You know, I think that's a great note to end it on. But gentlemen, thank you both for the time today. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you. The same to you, man.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.